Hi there, and welcome to This Day in History for December 6th. December 6th is the 340th day of the year in the Gregorian calendar, with 25 days remaining until the end of the year. As you might realize, I often record these episodes in advance, as I am this very one. For this reason, I have searched a word a day to find a word for December 6th, but it is from a previous year. It's an interesting one, though. This time it's gastronome, which is a noun that means a connoisseur of good food. It comes to us through the French language, ultimately from the Greek gastronomia, which comes from gastro, which means stomach, and nomos, which means law. The earliest documented use of the word gastronome was in 1823. Gastronome. This is a good time of year for gastronomes. And now we're going to go back to 1865 when the 13th Amendment was ratified. On December 6, 1865, the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution officially ended the institution of slavery, and I believe the text of it says that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. With these words, the single greatest change wrought by the Civil War was officially noted in the Constitution. 1868, Vigilantes yanked train robbers from jail and hung them. A guard who had been shot by brothers Frank, William, and Simeon Reno during a train robbery in May died of his wounds, and his death so infuriated the public that a group of vigilantes yanked the three brothers from their Indiana jail cell 5 days later and hanged them. Although the Reno gang, which included another brother, John, as well, had a short reign of terror, they are credited with pulling off the first train robbery in American history and are believed to be the inspiration for criminal copycats like the legendary Jesse James. On this day in 1877, the first edition of the Washington Post was published. December 6, 1884, the Washington Monument was completed. Workers placed a 9-inch aluminum pyramid atop the tower of white marble, completing the construction of an impressive monument to the city's namesake and the nation's first president, George Washington. 1896, Ira Gershwin was born. In 1900, the American actress Agnes Moorehead was born. She played Samantha's mother in the original version of Bewitched back in the 60s. In 1904, Theodore Roosevelt articulated his corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, stating that the U.S. would intervene in the Western Hemisphere should Latin American governments prove incapable or unstable. December 6, 1907, the Monongah coal mine disaster. In West Virginia's Marion County, an explosion in a network of mines owned by the Fairmont Coal Company in Monongah killed 362 coal miners. It was the worst mining disaster in American history. In 1912, the Nefertiti bust was discovered. 1917, the Great Halifax Explosion. At 9:05 on December 6, 1917, in the harbor of Halifax, in the Canadian province of Nova Scotia, the most devastating man-made explosion in the pre-atomic age occurred when the Mont Blanc, a French munitions ship, exploded 20 minutes after colliding with another vessel. The Mont Blanc was loaded with highly volatile and explosive cargo. Part of the cargo was something called picric acid, and it caught fire right away. The crew were smart enough to get off the ship, but they were unable to alert the rest of the harbor. The ship floated on toward the shore and caught a pier on fire. The fire department got right there, and they were hooking up the fire hose to the nearest hydrant when the ship exploded at 9:05. It was so huge, 1,800 people were killed right away, and thousands of others were injured. It destroyed more than 1,600 homes, and the blast broke windows as far as 50 miles away. In 1920, Dave Brubeck, American pianist and composer, was born, and didn't we just talk about him yesterday? Well, this is his birthday. December 6, 1921, the Irish Free State is declared, comprising 4/5 of Ireland. It ended a 5-year Irish struggle for independence from Britain. Like other autonomous nations of the former British Empire, Ireland was to remain part of the British Commonwealth, symbolically subject to the King, or Queen in our current case. The Irish Free State later severed ties with Britain and was renamed and is now called the Republic of Ireland. On this day in 1933, a federal judge ruled that the book Ulyses by James Joyce was not obscene. The book had been banned immediately in both the United States and England when it came out in 1922. 3 years earlier, its serialization in an American review had been cut short by the U.S. Post Office for the same reason. One of James' supporters, Sylvia Beach, owner of the bookstore Shakespeare and Company in Paris, published the novel herself in 1922. I have not read this work, so I cannot tell you much more about it, but Ulysses, with its radical stream of consciousness narrative, deeply influenced the development of the modern novel. This is the birthday of Kenneth Copeland, American evangelist and author who was born in 1936. On this day in 1941, FDR said to the Japanese emperor, "Prevent further death and destruction." President Roosevelt, convinced on the basis of intelligence reports that the Japanese fleet was headed for Thailand, not the United States, telegrammed Emperor Hirohito with the request that, for the sake of humanity, the emperor intervene to prevent further death and destruction in the world. The Japanese Navy was on the move. Surveillance said it looked like they were headed for Thailand, and that group was headed for Thailand, but it was a trick, as Admiral Yamamoto was already 600 miles northwest of Hawaii, giving his men a pep talk. In 1947, the Everglades National Park in Florida was dedicated. In 1955, Honus Wagner, American baseball player and manager, one of the first 5 to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, the Flying Dutchman, died on this day at the age of 81. December 6, 1969, there was a frightening and ugly incident at the Altamont Festival. The Rolling Stones were hoping this festival would be the West Coast equivalent of Woodstock, both in scale and spirit. But Woodstock had been the result of months of careful planning by a team of well-funded organizers, whereas Altamont was a largely improvised affair that didn't even have a definite venue arranged until right up to the event. They hired Hell's Angels for security, and they're pretty good at making things happen, but maybe don't really have the training for actual security. Things got out of hand, people got injured and died, and it was ugly, and it was on this day in 1969 when the Altamont Festival came to a violent end. In 1988, on this day, we lost the American singer, songwriter, and guitarist Roy Orbison. I wasn't one of his biggest fans through most of his career, but then he went and joined up with the Traveling Wilburys. Sure enjoyed those guys. Roy Orbison passed away in 1988. And our last item is to tell you about this. One of the biggest hits of 1973 was a song called Drift Away by an artist named Dobie Gray. Dobie Gray was an American singer, songwriter, and producer, and he died on this day, December 6, 2011, at the age of 71. I particularly like his song Drift Away, so I found a version of it and linked it in the show notes. And I think we're going to wrap it up right there. Thank you so much for watching. As always, links to my research are included in the show notes. Give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And feel free to share if you found this video interesting or informative. Check out my other channel, 8 Susquehanna. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Okie dokie, Smokey. You know, I thought this was going to be an easy read, and it's going to be a long edit instead. Just read the words. Just read the words. Having a little trouble with my words today. That's a lot of words. Sometimes when you read the words, it's not quite enough if you haven't put enough words in there to begin with. Didn't we do that yesterday? Okay, now let's one more time. Hope I pronounced that right. Thank goodness for editing. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? She's not a man. One.
Hello. Your call cannot be taken at the moment, so please leave your message after the tone. Thank you.
They never leave a message. And this is why I don't do live shows.